Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to try and take the pulse of the entire planet by looking at just one single 24-hour news cycle. The day? Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. Let's see what it has to tell us.
So that's the big question, right? Can a single snapshot in time really reveal the huge forces that are shaping our future? Well, as you're about to see, the headlines from this one day paint a picture of a world stretched pretty thin.
It all kicked off with a military command so stark it put the whole world on high alert.
But at the very same time, a slow-burning humanitarian crisis was hitting an absolutely terrifying new milestone. And while all of that was going on, a decision was finalized that would quietly but fundamentally change society for millions. You've got conflict, crisis, and massive change all packed in to just one day.
Okay, so first up, let's dive into the day's most urgent crisis, a major standoff in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical shipping lanes on the entire planet. And there you have it. That's not a suggestion, it's not a warning, it's a direct order from the President of the United States. This one statement just dramatically cranked up the tension with Iran, which had reportedly started laying mines in the strait again. It turned a very tense situation into a potential trigger for all-out war. Now, this slide is fascinating because it really just maps out the chaos of the day. You have that direct military order right at the top. Then, almost in defiance, Iranian commandos swarm and seize two massive container ships. Meanwhile, back in Washington, the president fires his Navy secretary, apparently for not building warships fast enough. But then, and this is the kicker, look at that bottom row. Somehow, in the middle of all this brinkmanship, a tiny piece of diplomacy actually works. Israel and Lebanon agree to extend a ceasefire. It's this wild contrast, right? Escalation and de-escalation happening at the exact same time.
And the consequences? They were immediate, and they were global. With that vital shipping lane pretty much choked off, the price for Brent crude oil just surged past $100 a barrel, sending these economic shockwaves way, way beyond the Middle East. But you know, that standoff in Hormuz wasn't the only story. While the world was watching the strait, some really profound policy changes and long-running conflicts were shaping events everywhere else. And this right here is a perfect example. A truly historic moment in U.S. domestic policy. On this day, the federal government officially reclassified marijuana. It moved from Schedule 1, we're talking the most dangerous category, right alongside heroin, all the way down to Schedule 3. That puts it in the same class as prescription drugs like Tylenol with codeine. I mean, that one move signals a massive shift in how the country thinks about medicine, law, and culture.
Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine just kept grinding on. As Ukrainian forces were battling these relentless Russian drone strikes, the European Council finalized a pretty powerful symbol of commitment, a massive €90 billion interest-free loan for the country.
And you know, while a couple of big crises tend to grab all the headlines, this slide is such a good reminder of these long-term struggles for justice that are always happening. The UN demanding action in Mexico over its terrible crisis of disappearances. A former president in the Philippines finally set to face trial at the ICC. And in South Africa, the president actually suspends his own police commissioner for corruption. These aren't sudden explosions. They're crucial turning points in these long, hard-fought battles for accountability. So, beyond the conflicts we create for ourselves, April 23rd also revealed a planet that is under an immense amount of strain, and it was sending its own pretty powerful signals of distress.
In Somalia, the United Nations issued this just dire warning. 6.5 million people, that's nearly 40% of the entire population, were facing acute hunger. It's a catastrophe fueled by this devastating one-two punch of climate change and ongoing conflict.
Over in Hawaii, a pretty stark reminder of nature's raw power. The Kilauea volcano erupted for the 45th time in less than 2 years. The 45th time. That is just relentless geological activity, reshaping the island itself.
And in the U.S. state of Georgia, a state of emergency was declared as these fast-moving wildfires threatened thousands of homes. It was just another gut-wrenching example of the very real human cost of a changing climate. So what happens when we zoom back out? What does this whole mosaic of military tension, social change, and environmental disaster from a single Thursday, what does it actually tell us? Well, it reveals a world of incredible, almost bizarre contrasts. On the same day that a shoot-and-kill order was issued, the 91st NFL draft kicked off,
a ritual of pure normalcy happening right alongside a global crisis. And then, in this strange twist of diplomacy, even as the US and Iran stood at the brink, the Secretary of State confirmed that, yeah, Iranian athletes were still welcome at the upcoming World Cup. Life, in all its weird and wonderful forms, just goes on.
So if you pull it all together, three really clear themes emerge from this one day. First, that global stability is fragile and it can be threatened in a heartbeat. Second, that even during major crises, these deep, long-term societal changes are always unfolding under the surface. And third, that the pressures on our planet, from hunger to wildfires to volcanoes, are becoming an undeniable part of our daily reality.
And that leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? If a single random Thursday in April can contain this much tension and this much transformation, it just forces you to ask, what does tomorrow hold? And maybe more importantly, how do we prepare for it?